Hi everyone, Manmeet Chowdhury from Optimum Performance Solutions. Now, it's inevitable that we are going to go through life and have experiences that cause us some sort of distress. In actuality, there are really only two forms of distress. Two, you might be saying, Manmeet, well, don't take my word for it. Let's take a moment. Go to a moment where you were specifically experiencing some sort of distress in your life. And now I want you to ask yourself, which one of these two categories did it fall under? Were you fearing losing something you were admiring and liking and infatuating with? Or were you fearing gaining something that you were resenting, despising and disliking? Those two forms are what we call the forms of distress that we have, and either one of those will cause something we call grief. We either grieve losing something we infatuate and like and admire, or we grieve gaining something that we resent, dislike and despise. For how to deal with overcoming resentments, please watch one of my other videos on that, but today I'd like to focus on losing something that we admire and like. Now, there are all different types of forms of losses we will also go through in our life, be it losing a relationship, maybe through a divorce, maybe through a breakup, be it a business from bankruptcy, or actually just losing it to another business partner, for example. We will also experience losing friendships, people leaving us, or something happening around friendships where friendships break up. And then the one I would love to focus on today is losing a loved one. Now, what I'm going to share with you applies to any of those forms of losses. But as I said, today I want to just help you deal with losing a loved one. The methodology that I'm going to share with you is the Demartini Method for overcoming grief of losing a loved one, which can be cleared within a matter of hours. It's been used with thousands of people globally, and we've been able to help so many individuals using this methodology and help them overcome griefs that sometimes they've held on for absolutely years. I remember one specific individual was holding on to grief for 60 years. They could just not talk about the individual that they had lost through death without crying. And at the end of it, they were able to overcome that within a matter of hours. And I want to share with you how that is possible for you. Whenever I or others who use this methodology have worked with individuals who are experiencing grief, every time we use the methodology, we've never found that people are missing everything about the individual now that they've gone. We normally find that there are certain things about this individual that they used to do or didn't do that they admired, liked, but not really the things they despised and disliked. Why is that? Well, the things that we admire and like, you see, what happens is those create chemicals within us, kind of like addictive chemicals like endorphins, oxytocins, and enkephalons, which when those actually are not there anymore, we miss it. And when we miss it, we then grieve. But you see, the things that we disliked and despised in this individual, now that they're not there, we're actually relieved. So just like a magnet has two sides, when someone passes or someone leaves, we have equal grief for losing the things that we admire and equal relief for the things that are no longer there that we despise. So things like, we don't have to clear up after them, or they don't leave their toilet seat up. So every time we are finding out what specifically do you now miss, the individual's gone, we don't tend to find things that these are the things that they despised and disliked. So what I'm going to share with you is the questions of the method to help you deal with actually processing having lost a loved one. The first question is, what specific trait, action or inaction? What that means is, what specifically did they do or not do that you now miss that they have gone? Or from the moment they left, what do you now miss? So what did they do or not do that you now miss? Now, I don't want you to use words like, well, I just miss their presence. Because, as explained, you don't miss their presence that's too vague. It's what they did or didn't do that made up their presence that you now miss. So, you know, their hugs, or the in-depth conversations, or the phone calls, or being able to socialize with them, going to dinners, going to cinemas, the very thing that they did or didn't do that you now miss. I'd like you to identify what that specifically is. And I know now, having explained that we only miss the things that we admire and like, when you complete that list, typically you'll come up with about maximum of 10. Most of the times it's 4 or 5 things, but maximum of 10. I think I had 12 before when I worked with one individual, and that was quite fresh. Like I did it a week after the individual had passed away. So you want to identify what specifically did they do or not do that you now miss, that they are no longer in your life. And as I said before, you can use this for losing a loved one, or even somebody who's left through a relationship. Now that you've identified the specific action or inaction, what they did or didn't do that you now miss, the next question is to ask is, from the moment they passed, from the moment they left, who took on that very trait, action or inaction? Who started to do that very behavior? Now, this can be in the form of one or many individuals. It can be in the form of close people around you, or distant, somewhere in even another country through, you know, Zoom, Skype, etc. It can be male or female, and it can even be yourself. Now, what happens is you'll sometimes find there were people around you already that started to do it a little bit more now that the individual have gone, or sometimes new individuals came into that. Now, to reiterate this point, I wanted to give you a little bit of a visual that I have in my mind of how I process this question. So let's just take this dandelion, if you can see it for a moment. This dandelion is a form of 1, and these have all these little, I would say, the actions of the individual that you now miss. So before, it was in this form. The moment they passed, as you can know what happens to a dandelion, it went into the form of many. So you will find that the very thing that you now miss in this individual has dispersed into many individuals. And you want to keep listing those individuals' initials or names until you see that the quantity of the new form of the individuals taking on that trait equals the same as that dandelion quantitatively. And please do not stop until you get to that. If you still go to the fact that, well, yes, but it's not the same, remember, all we're looking at is your dandelion of the individual you've now missed is on one side of the scale. And all the individuals you're listing who are doing this trait that you miss, you know, let's just take the example of deep conversations. Now you're having deep conversations with all these other individuals. That on a scale equals quantitatively to this dandelion. So that's what you're looking for in this question. The next question after this, we're looking at going and seeing that when this individual was there in your life and they were displaying and demonstrating those things that you now miss, what was the drawback to you at the time that they were there with you? So those deep conversations, for example, what were the drawbacks? Now, I know you're kind of going to be like, Mummy, well, this is a little hard. I understand that, but please do yourself a favor and look for this, because the moment you start looking for the drawbacks of that very trait, action or inaction that you admire and like, you're just going to calm down the grief that you have. So once we start to see the drawbacks of that, you'll start to see that actually when this individual was alive, when they were displaying and demonstrating this trait, action and action, it had equal drawbacks as it did benefits when they were alive. It's not to turn the thing that they used to do now from a positive, admired thing right down to a resented and thing that you don't like anymore. It's just to see that it had both sides. Remember I said we grieve the things that we admire and like. So as soon as you start to see the other side, the grief actually calms down. You keep going until you can say, hand on heart, I can see that this trait, when it was being displayed, when this individual was there, it had equal drawbacks as it did benefits. Now the new form, that all those pieces of that dandelion that have now emerged, we're looking to look at what are the benefits of the new form that has emerged in your life. How is it helping you fulfill what's most important since the individual has passed? And because that new form is currently in the pit, we're looking to bring that out of the pit because you're not recognizing that. And the moment you see that it has equal benefits as it does drawbacks, you're able to see that actually all that's happened is the things that I miss in this individual transformed into many individuals. And having it in the many individuals has just as many benefits as it does drawbacks. And having it in that one individual has just as many drawbacks as it does benefits. So I just see transformation that was most needed for me. Now, most people that, are either dying because they are going through an illness or something, we tend to rationalize, oh, they've passed because it was better for them not to suffer anymore. Well, you see, when you do this process for yourself, you actually see that when you neutralize things like that, you feel the presence of the individual that has now gone, and all you are left with is thank you for passing, thank you for leaving. You see their contribution in that passing or leaving being an act of love, because you see how you are fulfilling your priorities and your values just as much as you were when they were there. And when you're left with that, you see, you're left with pure love for the individual passing. Because I want to ask you a question, why I say that you feel the presence of the individual is, when you leave, what do you want individuals that are left behind, your loved ones, to do? Do you want them to sit and grieve for 10 days, 20 days, and months and years? Or would you like them to remember your passing as an act of love and go on to live an empowered and inspired life? I know most individuals that I speak to, not most, in fact, every individual I ask that question to, or choose the latter, because we want people to get on with their lives. Well, now there's a process to help us neutralize those emotions, see the passing as an act of love and gratitude for the individual going, excuse me, and go on to live that inspired life. Because you see, when we're grieving something, it's taking up time and space in our mind, and we're not able to get on with our life. Once you process this, you're able to get on with your life. Now, if you do the process and you come across some things that you're not able to do on your own, or you just can't push through something, please get in contact with me. I can help you through it through a one-to-one, or through a workshop which is specifically around coming and dissolving and getting over the grief of losing a loved one, which you can find on the website www.optimumperformancesolutions.com. And I want to take a moment just to say thank you to Dr. John Demartini for coming up with a process that allows us to overcome any form of perceived grief we have in our lives in a matter of hours. And I've seen and experienced and helped people through this very process, and it is absolutely liberating to see individuals overcome the grief and then get back to living an inspired life. Please, if there are any questions, get in contact. We'll help you as much as we can, but don't sit there and just be in grief, because I can tell you the individual that's passed wouldn't want that.